Hey, it's Cordell of Eating Well with Chef Cordell Consulting, where we teach and feed the healthy way. Your life depends on it. So for my budget cookers out there, we got a good one for you. It's simple, easy, tasty, flavorful, healthy, and all of that. What we're going to do is a vegetable pasta with a sauce. So for the pasta, we're going to use a vegetable rotini, about 2 cups or so. We're going to use an onion, about half. We're going to use a lime, one of my favorite mushrooms, a portobello mushroom. We're going to use a bell pepper, and we're going to use some squash. On the sauce side, what we're going to use are roasted tomatoes, about a pint. We're going to use some garlic, some thyme, and some rosemary. We're going to use some pasta water, which we'll get to in a minute, olive oil, salt, and cayenne pepper. Preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Rinse and pat dry 1 pint of tomatoes and add them to a bowl. Add enough olive oil just to get the tomatoes wet. Mix them up. Add them to an oven-safe dish. Cook them in the oven for 15 to 20 minutes or until the skins begin to burst. As the tomatoes are cooking, boil 2 cups of pasta. After the pasta is done, but before you drain it, reserve about 1.5 cups or so of that cooking liquid. That cooking liquid now has starch from the pasta, which will help in the end the sauce stick to the pasta as it begins to cook. So once your tomatoes have cooled off, you want to put them in a bowl, put them off to the side, and then we'll be ready to make our sauce. So we're going to take our blender here, and grab some gloves here real quick. This is a very easy dish. It doesn't take very long to cook, and you'll be surprised how good this sauce can turn out to actually be. Okay, feel free to put your own spin on this. If you want to use some different types of herbs like basil, what have you, perfectly fine. So we're going to take our tomatoes here. We're going to put these in the blender. Put this off to the side. Now what we're going to do is take off the ends to this garlic here. So we got about 4 cloves of garlic. Of course, you guys know I love garlic. You don't have to use this much, but if you want to use more, please feel free. All right. We're going to add our garlic now to the blender as well. Now we're going to take off these herbs off of these stems. So I would say get maybe 2 sprigs or so of rosemary for this. Now with the rosemary, when you want to take it off, you want to hold it at the top and pull down. Okay. And then you can pull off like so. Now, if you get some of the stems in the sauce, it's not the end of the world. All right, but you don't want to get any in them or many. You want to take your time here. You can hold this upside down and just hold it at the top and just slide down. All right? Or you can take it right side up and do the same. So you're going to take a couple sprigs of thyme here. Now, thyme is one of those herbs. It doesn't have a lot of flavor. It has some earthiness to it. But what it does help to do is bring out the flavors of whatever else you add to it. All right, so we got our herbs in there now. What we're going to do is blend this up here. This is going to be the base of our sauce. Just going to let that go for about 15 to 20 seconds. All right, so it's going to be a little thick. That's okay. It's okay. I'm going to taste this here just to see where we are. Okay. I'm going to add some salt to this. Just a little bit. Because you remember we're going to build this dish, so we're going to be able to have an opportunity to add salt to it at that point. I'm just going to take a little bit of this pasta water here just to loosen the sauce up a bit. Just in case it gets a little too thick for you. Put this back on here for a second. All right, so now we got the base for our sauce. And remember, you'll be able to change the flavor as we cook. So now what we're going to do is turn our eye on here to a good medium heat. We're going to take our vegetables and begin to chop these up. Now, a question that I get often, especially when it comes to cutting onions, is how can you cut these without tears coming out of your eyes? First of all, when you cut into an onion, what you're doing is you're letting the gas that's inside the onion start to come out. So that's what's starting to affect your eyes. So when you're dealing with that, there are a couple ways that you can do it. What you can do is take the onion after you cut it, place it in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes, or soak it in cold water for about 30 minutes, and then come back and cut it. You could also take a bunch of candles and create a seance. And what will happen is as you start to cut it, the gases will run towards the fire. Or three, what you can do, and you'll look pretty silly doing it, but it's very effective. Take about a half a piece of bread, put it into your mouth, let it hang over your lips. As you start to cut the product, at that point, the gas will start to come up and be soaked up by the bread. So it never will actually hit your eyes, okay? So a couple of really cool tips that you can try. All right, so I'm gonna slice these up here. We're gonna take a little bit of olive oil. Add this to the mix here. All right, so we got our onions cut. What we're now going to do is going to slice our bell pepper. Now, you can cut bell pepper however you choose to. I've seen people cut it with it in their hand and very carefully guiding the knife through. What I like to do is look at it as a square and cut around the square, okay? So I'm going to slice off each edge here. Now, I don't want to go too deep into it because if I do go too deep into it this way, what'll happen is I'll catch some of those seeds, and that's what I don't want. All right, so we're going to use about half of this. Now you want to take out the rib meat, that's the white part in the bell pepper. Okay, our bodies can't really do much with that, so you want to take that out, and you can pull it out or you can slice it out, that's fine. Now I want to cut the bell peppers roughly about the size of the rotini. So what I'm going to do first is cut it this way and then cut it into slices, all right, like so. So I take it like this. Now we got two pieces like this, and then we're going to slice it, okay? However thick or thin that you like it is perfectly fine. It's up to you. I'm going to take the other piece of the pepper and do the same thing. Okay. Now we got that part done. We're going to take our mushroom here. This is a portobello mushroom. Now this one has already been cleaned. When it comes to cleaning mushrooms, what you want to do is do not rinse it off, first of all. Take a damp paper towel and wipe it off. That's the best way to get off the dirt that's on top of that mushroom, okay? You do not want to run it under water. It'll be like a sponge. It'll soak all that water in, okay? So we're going to take a spoon here. We're just going to take out the gills. That's the brown part that's on the inside here. Going to scoop those out. You can leave them in, it's perfectly fine. I just like to scoop them out. All right, so we got that done here. What we're now going to do is cut this in half, like so. So we have two pieces like this, and then just slice it. Now mushrooms, when you cook them, they will lose a little bit of their volume. So you don't want to cut them too small. So you see the size that they are now. It'll be a little bit smaller once it's all said and done. All right, so we're going to check our pan here. Yep, we're about good to go here. And then lastly, while we do that, we're going to take our squash here. I like squash, one of my go-to vegetables, squash and zucchini. So we're going to take about half of this. We're going to slice it like so, and then cut it into little half moons. All right, or if you wanted to cut it into smaller pieces, that's fine as well. Okay, our pan is now good to go, so we're going to start to add some of our vegetables to it. Now that's the sound that you want to hear once you start to add your vegetables or your product to it. You want to hear that sizzle. So we're not going to add everything to it, but we're going to add some of these to it here. Saute the vegetables for about 4 to 5 minutes, stirring them occasionally. In the 4 to 5 minutes that our vegetables have been cooking, they're starting to caramelize or turn brown. So some of the sugars inside of those vegetables are starting to come out. And now it's ready for us to add our pasta. We add our pasta to it. We're going to add our sauce to it that we just made. And this is when you guessed it, the pasta water comes into play. You definitely want to add this pasta water. This will enable that sauce to better stick to your pasta. Now, after you add all of this, you want to turn your pan down to a low heat. Give it a couple of stirs, a low to medium heat, and let it cook for a couple of minutes. Because the only purpose at this point is to heat the pasta through. Now that the pasta is heated through, you want to taste it and adjust your seasonings as necessary. This is where you may want to add a little bit of salt, a little more pepper, or what have you. I think we're at a good place right here. So I'm not going to add anything else, but what I will do, I've taken this lime here, I've rinsed it off, dried it very well. We're going to take our grater or our zester and just take some of the flavor from the outside of this lime to really top this thing off. So the outside of the fruit actually has a lot of flavor to it. Now when you're zesting this or getting that outside part off, you don't want to go too far down to the white because then it starts to become a little bit bitter. And as you start to grate this, you'll smell the fruit that you're grating. So here I smell a lot of lime and it smells fantastic, guys. I highly suggest that you try this at home. Now, after you've gotten off all that you want from the zester, you can still use this fruit, okay? I will put it in the refrigerator though, because if you leave it out on the counter, it'll become hard very quickly. All right, so we're just gonna give this one last stir here, and then it's about that time to eat, guys. You can catch us on Facebook at Eating Well with Chef Cordell Consulting, on Instagram at Chef Cordell, LinkedIn, Cordell McGarry - Eating Well with Chef Cordell Consulting. And as always, you don't have to be a chef to know how to cook.